Hi, this is Chloe from Inner Whispers. I've been thinking a lot about magic recently, what it is, how it works. Somebody asked me, is magic psychological or is it magic? And my answer was yes and yes. On the one hand, I spoke in my last video, the M word, about the psychological side of magic, how it's about tapping into our unconscious and creating a firm intent, focusing that intent as we do our spell work. And yet there's also something more to it, I guess, is how I see it. I've been reading a few books recently that have kind of helped my thinking with this. One is R.J. Stewart's Advanced Magical Arts. I thought it was quite funny in this. He talks about psychology being a sub-branch of magic. And I think there's definitely something to that. Because psychology is a science, an academic subject, people try to take a quite rationalist approach to it, limiting what it is, laying down its boundaries. And that limiting in itself means that magic can encompass more, because it doesn't say, this is what this is and it's only this. Magic says, we are open to it being more, to it being magic. I also really like Lon Milo DuQuette's book, Low Magic, with its subtitle, It's All in Your Head, You Just Have No Idea How Big Your Head Is. And I think that's also true. Magic is more than just psychological, but it is about what is within us, about the changes that we can make within ourselves and how that influences the world. There was something very interesting in that regard, which R.J. Stewart again said in The Spirit Chord, which he recommended that when you visualize something, you visualize it outside of yourself rather than visualizing it inside your head. And I think that's one of the ways that we make our mind space larger. For me, there's something a little bit similar in my approach to deity. I take a non-dualistic approach to deity, seeing it as something which is both within myself and without myself, outside of myself. Not that deity is something totally separate, but nevertheless that there is that within and without side of it. And I think it's also true that seeing deity as something beyond myself is a way of opening myself to being wider, to being more than just what's inside here, the narrow confines of my brain, shall we say. And I think that it's interesting actually that scientific studies have shown that people who have faith in anything, whatever it is, do better in terms of recovery after major surgery or chronic illness. And they actually have better recovery rates than people who say that they have no form of faith. So that believing in something beyond ourselves is actually good for you at a psychological level. So if you have even the slightest bit of belief, I would fan that flame and look outwards, look beyond yourself, look to deity. Another thing which I was profoundly touched by in reading the books by Lon Milo DuQuette and R.J. Stewart was something that they said about compassion or love. In The Spirit Chord, R.J. Stewart talks about what so many people say, that we are all one, and saying this isn't just about saying, I am everything. It is also about feeling that compassion for others, feeling their pain as well as their joy, feeling everything that there is to feel in the universe. And interestingly as well, Lon Milo DuQuette in Low Magic talks about the extra ingredient in magic, the one that truly makes things, the one that truly makes spells successful, being love. And I think that's an interesting concept, that it may be love for ourselves, which is no bad thing. It's really important that we do love ourselves in a true and pure way, not just about ego inflation and selfishly, but caringly, tenderly. And so that sort of love can feed and nourish and be the spark that brings life to a spell that we do to change ourselves. We're doing it from a position of love rather than a position of hate. And I think that's an important thing, that we're not changing ourselves because we dislike ourselves, but because we love ourselves so much. And the same, I think, is true, that if we love somebody else, then we are more able to do a spell for them. And coming back to the psychology once again, which I seem to keep doing, back and forth, there's actually been quite a few books on love and the importance of love within, for example, the psychotherapeutic relationship. That there are many authors who argue that you cannot truly help another person unless you find a tiny edge of love for them in your heart. That place where you can honour them, appreciate them, respect them, and that without that you'll never truly be able to help them. So I think it's really interesting that these different people from quite different perspectives come to the same sense of things. So those are my thoughts at the moment about spirituality and the something more in magic. And that's partly a being open to there being more, and partly a being open to love. And if I had to say what the main truth of Deity is love. Spirit is love. Blessed be.